We're on the other side of your weekend here, the Monday edition of the Vegas Take, coming here live, 101.5 FM, 720 AM K-Dawn. Talk of Las Vegas, Chris Wynn in for Brian Shapiro, along with J.D. Sharp. You can also watch us live on our YouTube channel, the Vegas Take Radio. And we are about to discuss an iconic show and an icon returning to that show, J.D., as Saturday Night Live has been on the air for years, since the late 70s. And it continues to roll along throughout different presidents, different, scenarios in our country's history, and they have an interesting take on it. Well, Eddie Murphy, a comedic legend, came back onto the show this weekend, hosted the show for the first time in a long time. And it starts out, obviously, those of you that don't watch Saturday Night Live, there's a monologue by the host of that week, and then it's basically a sketch comedy show where they, go through skits, and it's tremendous if you're into that type of television. Well, Eddie Murphy was one of the pioneers on that show and was a member of that cast that a lot of our older listeners will remember, of course, with Chevy Chase and Bill Murray and Gilda Radner and across the line. Just, basically people who are legends in the entertainment business started out in that show. And JD, it's really cool to get someone like Eddie Murphy back on there and to give his point of view with, what's going on in America today and how he portrays everything. It was pretty interesting to see what his take was. And when it all started right with a monologue where he had an interesting take on a former, now disgraced comedian, Bill Cosby, who is now serving time in jail. But he brought back a lot of his old characters, Eddie Murphy did, and one of those characters was unleashed on Colin Jost and Michael Che, the two hosts of Weekend Update on SNL.
Let me tell you something. I saved this damn show from the gutter, and it's thanks to me. This is the thanks that I get for saving this show. Shame on you, Lorne Michaels. Shame on you, NBC. Shame on you.
All right, Gumby, just calm down.
Don't tell me to calm down, trailer boy. And I gotta sit and listen to this black bastard telling me people won't remember who I am? Hey, you know why you two are behind this desk? Because your jokes don't have legs, you schmucks. I pass kidney stones with more personality than the two of you.
That's a little rude.
Face it, kid, the both of you together couldn't Velcro my sneakers.
And look, that he's had so many iconic characters that he's unleashed on America. Of course, Buckwheat's another one. Mr. Robinson's Neighborhood is another also. But it's they pride themselves, JD, don't they, on this show on SNL, not to break character, right? To not bust out and just in just unleash laughter.
Well, I mean,
but they couldn't help it. They had to once they have a legend.
If you've
like
ever
that
watched the old Will Ferrell, Jimmy Fallon segments,
yes,
Jimmy Fallon broke the fourth wall. Like 10 times. There was a segment where the entire time he was just constantly breaking the fourth wall. But I'm glad that SNL brought back Eddie Murphy because it needed a boost. This Donald Trump stuff had gotten a little bit old. The Alec Baldwin, the Pete Davidson, but bringing a guy like Eddie Murphy back, that's a correct move. So kudos to you for doing that SNL, but I have not watched it myself.
It's interesting, though, that there are really two types of fans. There's the fans of Eddie Murphy that remember his older stuff, right? The Beverly Hills Cop series, 48 Hours, Trading Places, the Nutty Professor. And then there's the younger fans, the younger people like yourselves who, would remember more for his appearance on Shrek or, him being in Vampire in Brooklyn or Norbit. Or movies like that later on. It's almost like the same dynamic, I think, as Ice Cube, right? Ice Cube, a lot of the younger people think of Ice Cube as, the dad, as he's in all these family-friendly movies and in the likes of Barbershop and stuff like that.
What was awesome was Bowfinger.
Yeah, Bowfinger was good, too. That was in the 90s, though, also. That was kind of in the transition.
I was like, no, I think it was 99.
Yeah, so it was.
I was 14
I would put that in the
years old at that
transition
point.
period for Eddie Murphy
but
fans.
his character in that, both characters were really, really funny.
Yeah.
So that's a movie that I really enjoyed.
I was a big Boomerang fan, by the way. That was a flick. I believe it came out around 94, 93, where he was pretty funny in that too. David Alan Grier was in that movie. Martin Lawrence was in that movie as well too. But it's an interesting dynamic. But the same thing with Ice Cube. Like Ice Cube now, he's a movie star. Ice Cube used to be a hardcore rapper for NWA back in the early 90s, late 80s. So it was it's interesting to see the transition.
Ice Cube's he's a movie star / businessman.
Exactly.
He runs the Big Three. Well,
He does.
I don't know if he's going to anymore, but he started
The
the
league, it kind of has its niche, though, doesn't it?
He started
JD?
the Big Three.
It has its niche.
We'll just see
it's
how-
not the
Come on,
NBA. It's
doing
not the D League.
They're doing it wrong, though, Chris. What they should do is, if you say you've got a team, not the Houston, I don't know, the Houston Spaceships instead of the Houston Rockets, but you should have former players from those teams that you're playing. So in order to be on that team, you should still call your team that name, but then you should actually get alumni and bring them back, like 3 or 4 alumni, and that's how the league should be situated. And so Ice Cube is doing that incorrect, and I think it's going to fail.
So Eddie Murphy, JD, in his monologue, took aim at a lot of things, but he took aim also at Bill Cosby and talked about how if you placed a bet, JD, back in the day of who would be today's TV dad and who would be in prison right now, he acknowledged full well that they would think Eddie Murphy would be the guy that would be in prison instead of Bill Cosby. That's not the case. And you know what, JD? We have an exclusive right now. We have somebody calling in, I believe, from a Pennsylvania prison detention center that wants to chime in with his thoughts on Eddie Murphy and his monologue on Saturday night. Caller, thank you very much for joining the Vegas Take. What's going on?
Well, I appreciate your time and stuff. The Vegas Take, it is a very popular show here where I am at right now, and I want to say something about Eddie Murphy. He is not funny at all. And that is my opinion, and I'm in here lifting a lot of weight. So when I see Eddie, it is going down.
Hey, Mr. Cosby, is it true that you can get Jell-O pudding pops while you're in prison right now? Do you have access to your favorites?
We call them Zoom Zooms and Wham Whams in here. That's the code. That's what we call them. Okay? And let me tell you something about Michael Cohen, because me and him have lunch later today, and we're going to lift weights together. There's a lot of interesting people that the Vegas Take talks to, but I'm going to start calling in a little bit more because I do not like Brian Shapiro.
What do you don't like about Brian? What makes you mad about Brian? What fires you up about Mr. Shapiro?
He is very passionate, but he's very, very wrong when he does the things that he does, and he speaks, and he turns from a vanilla pudding pop to a red pudding pop. See the top of his head. I hate him, but JD, now that is my guy. I love JD because he is all opinionated, and they're all wrong, but who cares?
So, Mr. Cosby, we appreciate you spending some time on your holiday week to call us, and make sure you. I hope you have fun hanging out with Michael Cohen and the rest of the crew in there. I think Robert Gates is heading in there with you too, right?
It should be fun.
We got a bunk ready for him. So I'll talk to everybody later. Y'all have a wonderful Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, and all the other things that you love to do.
Yes, former America's TV dad,
Perfect.
Bill Cosby, joining us live from a Pennsylvania prison.
Yes, and enjoy the yard, Bill.
That was outstanding stuff. Bill Cosby joining us on the show. Shout out to Campaign, our part of the Vegas Take family
For being
with his take.
For
On
knowing
how things went down.
For knowing Bill Cosby personally,
Yes.
and lining him up on our show. Thank you so much, Campaign.
That is how
You have crazy
That is how
connections.
many connections we have here at the Vegas Take. We can go right to the horse's mouth to a former comedic legend in Bill Cosby and get his thoughts on Eddie Murphy and him chiming in on Saturday Night Live. JD, that is solid stuff. That's why we are one of the greatest radio shows in Las Vegas, is because we're able to get insight like that from people that actually are part of the story and they're part of the news. Can't go wrong, right?
Chris, I need a pudding pop.
It is. The commercials were crazy. Bill Cosby, he was everywhere. He
But I
wasn't
want
just
a
he wasn't
sherbet
just
pudding pop.
Mr. Huxtable. The guy was all over the place back in the 80s and 90s. He was heralded, and now, how quickly has he fallen? It's crazy. So we are discussing, of course, obviously, comedic legend Eddie Murphy joining SNL.